Now, I want to get into what you think the world's going to look like, the cities, the country. When that 40 days happens, we know there's going to be pandemonium.
Right.
I wanted to share an article real quick, just based off your last point, if that's okay.
All right.
It's found on space.com. And one thing you were talking about is the disclosure of Planet X, when you think it'll happen. You think it'll be 40 days out. Well, when you go to space.com, that's a very credible website. It's not like a gullible.com or something like that. And I don't really know much about gullible.com. I just use that for an example. And I remember back in 2007, 2008, when I was researching things about Planet X, I mention Planet X to the church every now and then because, like you, I do believe that it has caused different events in the history of the world, and I do believe it will cause the sixth seal, which is why I think the topic is so very relevant to these times to talk about the sixth seal in Planet X, because now in the mainstream news, they're beginning to disclose tidbits of information about Planet X, a little bit here, a little bit there. And I remember back in 08 and 09, there was people, they were saying, hey, when we get close to this thing, you're going to start hearing them admit it slowly. Well, this started about a year ago. I started hearing, like on Fox News or CNN or whatnot, they was talking about Planet X. And my ears were perked up because I remembered they're starting to talk about this. And there was a time that NASA, they absolutely waylaid anyone. I mean, you can get on YouTube and search NASA scientist Planet X, and there's this guy on there, and he is just absolutely saying, don't worry about it, it's nothing, we would all know. But, boy, how times have changed, because let me read you this headline from space.com. It says, Mysterious Planet X. This is from January the 16th, 2015. Space.com. Mysterious Planet X may really lurk undiscovered in our solar system. When you say something's undiscovered, you're saying a lot, I think, without saying a lot, is how one fellow put it. A Planet X might actually exist. This is what the article says. And so might Planet Y. At least two planets larger than Earth likely lurk in the dark depths of space far beyond Pluto, just waiting to be discovered, a new analysis of the orbits of extreme trans-Neptunian objects, or the etnons, suggests. So they found these etnos. Researchers studied 13, it says right here, frigid bodies such as the dwarf planet Sedna that cruise around the sun at great distances in the elliptical paths. The article goes on to say that these bodies they found out past Neptune, again called etnos. This is from space.com, January of 2015. The actual article is January the 16th, so if you want to see it, it's by Mike Wall, space.com, senior writer. These etnos were being disturbed, and it caught the eyes of these scientists. And they say the reason is because these planets are out there, Planet X, maybe Planet Y. And it goes on to talk about some different things concerning these planets. And I'm going to tell you something. If my suspicion's correct, you're going to continually hear more and more of these kind of articles coming out in the mainstream until they finally say, hey, we found it, even though a lot of people believe they've always known that it's there. What do you think, Brother Gill?
Oh, without a doubt, they're going to condition the public to where they slowly adapt to the idea, to where there's not a panic. But when it comes to 40 days, shortly after that, there'll be a panic because it's steadily increasing in size as it's approaching us. And I don't know how else to put this, but it's going to be a frightening. If you don't know the science well enough on what to expect during the passing of this next event, it's going to be very, very serious to a person. Remember, I was telling you that not to look at September. Well, it's the same reason for Jonah, the 40-day warning. You can't have a 40-day warning if you're expecting it in September. You can only have a 40-day warning if you're expecting it in March. Got it? For CO6. It has to pass close to Earth to give us the circumstances listed in CO6. The people are mixing two events as one. What I've learned through this research, which I was not aware of before, but it can prove out in math. Remember how the two witnesses prophesied for 1,260 days? Then they're dead for 3.5?
Yes, 3.5. It's 3.5 years, isn't it?
No, they're dead for 3.5 days.
3.5 days.
They prophesied for 3.5 years, but they're dead for 3.5 days.
Right.
Okay. Now the word prophesied means to profess, to speak. They cannot speak if they're dead. So how many days are there on earth from the time of the day of the resurrection and rapture to the time they show up on earth? You got to add 3.5 days to that 1,260 days to find out when did they start. All right? So there's a 3.5 day difference in what most people put on their charts. Now, how many days are the people who are in hiding? The remnant that goes into hiding. It says they're only in hiding 1,260 days. Then they're raptured. So if you were to draw a single date, pick a random date, and put the two prophets being dead for 3.5, and then they're resurrected, and then the living who are in hiding raptured, remember it said the dead are first, then the living. And you draw these scales backwards in time, you find out that the two prophets are on earth before the remnant goes into hiding by 3.5 days. People didn't do the math correctly, you see? Well, guess what? If you take this March 26th that's given in Revelation 12:1 and plot it out, go 3.5 days earlier from that point, you get a full moon. Full moon is the Feast of Passover. And what are the Hebrews practicing? Which is called a mikra, a rehearsal. They rehearse at Feast of Passover. They set an empty plate and a chair for Elijah. They make a crack at the door to allow him in, and they wait each Feast of Passover as they practice for him to show up and have a meal with them, which is the Feast of Passover, announcing the groom is coming. 3.5 days later is when the groom comes, which is also the day of this meteor shower on the opposite side of Earth. And he takes you to a place of hiding for 1,260 days. And he says it's a remnant. Remnant, and as well as the 5 wise virgins. The 5 wise, or maidens is the proper way in Hebrew. Those 5 wise maidens are the bridesmaids because they have the lamps. In the customs of a Hebrew wedding, there was no street lights, and the groom would come in the mid of night to pick up his wife. But before he'd go pick it up, he'd have a messenger sent to announce to the father-in-law, say, don't attack me. I'm coming like a thief in the night, but don't attack me. I'm just coming to pick up my bride. It was a custom that was taught to them. And the bridesmaids would be waiting with the bride, and they had their lamps of oil to light the way throughout the town as they're walking with the bride and the bridegroom. And she was brought to her chamber prior to the wedding. Well, in this one, that chamber will be only for 3.5 years. Then it's a rapture and a resurrection. And we've mixed the two up because we didn't follow a Hebrew wedding. We're following more like a Western wedding. Hebrew weddings are much more drawn out and acted out in a way. And that's why the parable of the 10 virgins, now, when he comes, now the resurrection and the rapture, that's on the 7th month of September. Because there's a Hebrewism for that feast day, which is called what is it, the last great day or something like it's called, that feast day? Well, in Hebrew, it means no man knows the day or the hour, because that one is at the first of the month. It's the only feast at the first of the month, and you don't know that until you spot the first sliver of the moon. Remember what Yeshua said. I don't need to tell you because you already know. And he explains to them, because the day of it is the day of no man knows the day or the hour. They knew exactly what he was talking about, because that's what that festival was called, which is in September. But that's the resurrection and the rapture. What I'm talking about in March 26th is prior, 3.5 years earlier, where a remnant, as well as the bridesmaid, which there's no number to them, they go into a place of safety, to where they're not harmed during the Great Tribulation, but they're on earth, because it says wilderness. Wilderness has never been referred to as heaven unless you wish to twist Scripture. Wilderness means wilderness. And they're on earth because they're going to experience the earth shaking, earth tilting, the electrical discharges between the planets when they come close, the aurora, the northern lights going all the way down to the equator, the high winds, but they won't be harmed. But they'll experience the mightiness of the Father doing what he's doing to them without a hair harmed on them. They cannot experience the mightiness of the Father if they're off earth. And we're missing this because we're not studying the Hebrew customs. And that's part of the puzzle that I've learned in all of the books of the Bible are not random. They're data points pointing to the last book of the Bible, giving us the data on what to expect and how to figure it out. Even gives you the 40-day warning of Jonah. It gives you everything you need. But you got to understand the entire Bible on the biblical science level. Remember, he says, my people die of lack of knowledge. You got to fulfill that blank with knowledge to better survive this. What to expect and the timing and the whole nine. He's telling us exactly when. That's why I'm very concerned about that day. I can't tell the future. But when he puts a date written in there that missed everybody's viewpoint for 2,000 years, then he opens our eyes right at the end right here. Yeah, I'm very concerned about that date of being a real event.
Brother Gil, as you've been talking, I've been trying to trek with you and look at some things online at the same time, because as you know, you hear this, you hear that, you want to see what different articles may be out there, what's trending. One thing that I'm thinking right now, Brother Gil, and I'd like to get your opinion on it, is if the governments of the world come out and they say, hey, you got 40 minutes, 40 days, in this planet, because they can't hide it anymore, and this planet's going to come and really start causing chaos on Earth. What do you think will happen in society during those 40 days when they make this announcement?
Well, that's not very much, because they're going to have control over the people by and if you follow the seals, the order that the seals are given, because they're numbered. This is one of the few books that are actually numbered. And I would say that the Almighty, knows his numbering system. If he gives us 1, 2, 3, it doesn't mean 4 comes before 3. If he numbered it, it means that that's exactly the order that is going to be fulfilled. And if we use remember how we've been clearly taught that you use the Old Testament to interpret the New, and the New is confirmed in the Old, and so on and so on?
Sure.
You got to turn to the Old Testament to understand the seven seals, because there's an overlay that's taking a shadow picture. All of the rabbis, okay, no matter what group they are, there's different groups, they have certain books that we don't have access to, especially one called the Book of Genealogy. Goes all the way from Adam to now. They know what year it is. They publicly proclaimed at the Wailing Wall that on March of 2001 was the beginning of Jacob's trouble, and it was also the beginning of 6001.
Now talk about that, Brother Gill. Let's hone in right there. So the Jewish rabbis believed. Now, are you talking about Messianic rabbis, or are you talking about Orthodox Jewish rabbis? Because I know that they don't look at the New Testament the same way we do.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Karaite Jews that don't believe in man-made changes. I'm talking about the Orthodox. There's several groups of Judaism. They have the same problem as Christianity. They got splintered groups. Came together and agreed, because there's one common book of genealogy that they can count with. They said March 29th, 2001 was actually 6001, which was the beginning of the millennium and the beginning of Jacob's trouble. Okay? Now, they come out and said that in March. But September 11th, right, September 11th of 2001, we were attacked by Islam. Okay? That basically declared a jihad against Jews and Christians, which in my interpretation is Jacob. Okay? If you look up Jacob, what took place to him? If you want to know what Jacob's trouble is, go read Jacob, the book, the story of Jacob, and you find that, remember how when he went work for a relative, he had to work 7 years to get his first bride. But his bride, he was tricked. He didn't know anything about her, and he was tricked into this marriage.
Sure.
Well, 6001 was a Sabbath year. That's the end of a count of a seventh. That's the seventh year. Well, you got to, so a contract doesn't start until the next year. So year 2002 in March, you start counting. You count the next 7 years. And guess what? In 2008, we had a president that was elected that we knew nothing about, that some people called him a Messiah. Sure. Kind of like a marriage that we didn't know anything about, if you want to call it that. Now, if we go 7 more years later, that puts it, this 2015 is a Shemitah, is a 7th year. The following year is a Jubilee year. 2016 is a Jubilee year, starting in March. It is the custom of the Hebrews that the Messiah will return on a beginning of a Jubilee. It is stated in the text that when Israel was reformed, that generation that saw Israel formed would not die out, right, till all is fulfilled. Well, if you take a look in let me see, in Psalms, Psalm says that generation is 70 or 80. Well, if you take into account a bar mitzvah at age 12, when they're accountable for they're able to give testimony to what they see at age 12. Well, in 1947, it was declared on paper. 1948 was when it was actual nation. You take 1947 and add 12 to it and look at this. For the Jubilee, they're roughly 82 years old. And then if you count straight numbers without age 12, you're looking at age, 70, exactly 70 years. We cannot go to the next Jubilee. This generation will be dead.
Now, Steve,
if you remember earlier that I mentioned about the Nibiru disk, how it gave us the exact date, year, and month of Joseph when this incident happened?
That right there is very, very interesting to me. When you said we cannot go to the next Jubilee, can you key in on that just for a second?
Yes, because it is prophecy given to us by Yeshua. It says, it's in the gospel, it says, this generation will not die out until all is fulfilled. That is the Holocaust generation. They will not die out. That generation will not die out, but all is fulfilled. We cannot go to another Jubilee because the Messiah has to return on the beginning of a Jubilee, which will be Passover, around the Feast of Passover. Remember, Elijah announces he's coming. 3.5 days later, he comes, mid of night. And that night will be 12 hours longer. That's why the wise virgins have 2 portions of oil. The foolish have 1 portion. The wise have 2 portions. Because that night will be 12 hours longer. Because a portion of oil is supposed to last the entire night, which is normally 12. And the groom comes mid of night, not midnight, mid of night. And that night's going to be 24 hours. He comes exactly after the first 12 hours are finished. Well, the foolish virgins run out of oil. They got to go back to town to buy. The wise are trimming their wick and refilling their lamps. And you read the text, that's when he comes. And only the wise make it to the place of safety. We're fixing to have an open book test, and many will fail because they do not understand how the entire Bible fits together. Gives you all the information of the knowledge you need to make it to the place of safety. For 3.5 years, you'll be in that place of safety. Then the resurrection and the rapture, which will be on the 7th month. Okay? And I'm hoping that this makes sense to you, what I'm pointing out. Because mathematically, they could not have guessed that date 2,000 years ago. It's impossible. You need a decimal places of between 4 to 6 zeros.
So it's absolutely interesting, and it's stuff that you can listen to. Like I say, I've listened to a lot of different interviews. One that I've listened to from frontwards to the end, probably I don't know how many different times, but I've been in and out of the interviews with Brother Augusto Perez, Brother Augusto Perez is supposed to be coming on to this show in March. I got to set a date up with him. But I like to hear you explain your theory on this and things that I can't maybe take in right now. I can just go back and listen to, because you can archive this, MP3 it. We're going to upload this to YouTube. We've got a few shows set to get uploaded to YouTube, and this is going to be one of them. And I appreciate you taking the time to explain these things, because you have put a huge amount of research into the Planet X subject. I can't take it all in one setting, but I go back over it, listen to it some more, and then read Revelation, and then, of course, think about what you say and how it fits in the Revelation. And that's just how researchers do things.
You see, what's interesting, the Hebrews count the male as the unit of a family. Remember the 144,000, the bride? They're from the tribe of Israel. It states what tribe they are from. But that's counting only the males. If you add another 3.5, counting the wives and the children, if they have a righteous wife and children, they're there also. That gives you roughly 500,000 people representing the bride. The bridesmaid, there's a number given. I don't think that number is random. It says 5 wives. I think that number is 5 times the bride. You're looking at 2.5 to 3 million people total. That happens. Now, the bride is from any tribe, anywhere. I mean, the bridesmaid is not specific to the tribe of Israel. It is anyone can be the bridesmaid. That is roughly 2.5 to 3 million people. That is about the same number as the exodus of Egypt. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Well,
hello.
Yes, we're here. Brother Gill, we're almost down to 20 minutes on the show tonight, and we're up realistically about 15 minutes. I think it's been very informative. We really stayed on the topic tonight, really, for the most part, from beginning to end. And I missed some things through the show that I'm going to probably have to go back and listen to again, just to digest everything. We do these shows sometimes. I'm sitting at my house around the kitchen table sometimes, or the living room table. Sometimes I'm back in my office that my wife and I share, and other times I may be in one of my little girls' rooms. I was on the radio the other day, and I was in one of my little girls' rooms with the computer up on the bed, and I was tucked in the corner, and they were out in the other room. So we do these shows from my house. We are not in a big, giant studio, although as we build this new addition onto the church, we are going to have the opportunity probably to build a little studio to do a lot more than just blog talk radio interviews. So we're looking forward to that. I'm just saying that to say that when you're talking sometimes, you probably heard the dog bark once tonight, and you might hear that I'm trying to fight staying attentive sometimes. And I've caught most, if not all, of the content and the things that I need to go back and listen to again. I'll try to do that to clear up some of the points that I kind of get lost on. But all in all, I feel we've stayed on point, and we've got through the subject of Planet X comprehensively tonight. As we got about 10 more minutes here of airtime until we got to close the show down and give people a chance to accept Christ, we see the world right now in chaos. Brother Gill, we see thousands and thousands of bodies of fish, carcasses washing up on the shores. It seems the ocean floor is breaking apart, and perhaps the fumes of the gases in the centers of the earth are coming up to the ocean floors. That could be one possible theory. I think that's the case. We see sinkholes everywhere. I can't remember ever when I was a kid, ever growing up, even in my teenage years, in my 20s, ever seeing sinkholes the way we're seeing them now. We are seeing, from what I hear, a barrage of asteroids and meteor activity coming down through our atmosphere, creating these tremendous fireballs that are just astounding people as they come crashing down into the skies with these big flashes of light. There have been a lot of people see UFOs. There's alien abduction accounts, which we know are fallen angels, demon spirits, things like that. The nations of the world are at war almost everywhere you look. Maybe not every nation, but sometimes it seems like it. I mean, you see them fighting in the Middle East. They're doing brutal things, horrific things that I can't even imagine sometimes that we're seeing them, but yet we are. It's ghastly, to say the least. the torture that they're putting the Christians through. You got Russia and the situation in Europe, and America and Russia's now at a standoff, it seems like, and it's almost like who's going to flinch. And I think Putin is a man that is from the old Soviet Union mentality. His ties and his roots into that philosophy run very deep, and I wouldn't put nothing past him. There's 4 men of God I've heard: Dimitri Duduman, David Wilkerson, A. Allen, Henry Groover, and I'm pretty sure it's all these 4 have had visions of Russia attacking America. Now we're seeing that come to a climax. All these things are bottlenecking right now, and we could even talk about more: the moral breakdown, the same-sex marriages, all the things. We could just go on and on. All these things are coming to a head right now in real time. Brother Gill, if you had to leave our listening audience with just some final thoughts to close this show tonight, based off everything we've talked about, all the things I just said, trying to paint the picture of our world, what would those thoughts be right now?
Well, I'd focus on the time coming here more than what we're seeing on the news, because it's more important for us to focus on getting this information we need to make it to Jerusalem for this rehearsal. The word Mekrah, which is often taught in Christianity as feast, that is not the definition of that word. It means rehearsal. Remember how the Hebrews had to go to Jerusalem each year for Passover? That's why there were so many there for the Passover when Yeshua was being sacrificed. Because they were doing a Mekrah, they were able to recognize that he was the Messiah. Okay? There was a group that recognized it because they were fulfilling the Mekrah and what he did. Well, he said you will practice these precepts forever. These Mekrahs, where you understand the meaning. There is a Mekrah coming up for the Feast of Passover where you're required to be in Jerusalem. It says over 12 times in the Bible that the bride and the bridesmaids are going to be picked up on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. That's where the meeting place is. Don't forsake the rehearsal that he's telling us to keep forever.
Brother Gil,
otherwise, you will miss the appointed time, you see?
Brother Gil, you are one of the first people that I have ever heard, talk about the significance of the believers going to Jerusalem when these events begin to take place. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. It's so interesting to me.
It comes by learning. That's why he gave the Mekrah, the rehearsal, so they would recognize him when he came in the place of the Lamb. They were all required to go to Jerusalem. Okay? There's only going to be, that's why he says there's only a remnant that's going to be following his precepts that he said follow forever.
So you're saying essentially, if you don't go to Jerusalem when you see these things start to happen, that you're going to miss the rapture?
No, this is not a rapture. You're going to miss the taking away into the wilderness. Rapture refers off the earth. That's not what it says.
Got you. This is
Don't overlook the word wilderness. That's a key emphasis.
And of course, you're talking about in the book of Revelation where it talks about the dragon, I believe, spews out a flood, and the earth opens up and swallows the flood to protect those people that are in the wilderness.
Exactly. This is our sign. When we see this sign, when you see in December, when you have Hanukkah, you look up in the heavens, you see a lineup taking place. This comet-like object is going to be on the ecliptic right outside of Sagittarius. Above it is called Job's coffin. It's like a fist with a finger pointing. It's going to be pointing to this object, and it's going to be making a dance underneath the thing 3 times. It's going to pass underneath. Each time it passes underneath there, it's a week that pertains to the feast of the Hebrews. The last feast that it circles underneath this is Hanukkah, Feast of Lights. Well, the planets, when they're moving around in ancient Hebrew, they were called Feast of Lights. That's your signal. When you see that, you order your ticket to be there in Jerusalem around January, because.
So you're saying let's go over it again. I need to stay off this computer. I was just on our chat line, and I was asking them on our chat line while you were talking if there were any questions. I know we have only a few minutes, but now when you're saying when I see the lights, when I see the sign of the Planet X in the sky, that's what you're saying. That's the trigger point.
Under Job's coffin, which is the modern name for that is Delphinius, but it's like a hand with a finger pointing. When you see it underneath, that's your sign. This object is real. Be in Jerusalem for around January, because we can count. Remember, it says if you make it through the 1,390 days, count yourself lucky. Well,
okay,
we
can
count
about the end
where
of the book of Daniel when it talks about the 2 different sets of days, right? If you make it to that last set,
we can count on a calendar today 1,260 days from this date and say that's the day of resurrection. But guess what? After the second cataclysm that happens 150 days later, Earth's days are changed to 364 days, I believe. No, 360. Yeah, 364. As it was in Enoch. I think it was Enoch. Wasn't it him? The book of Enoch, he gives a calendar year of 364 days, I believe it is. That has never happened in the history of our Earth, but it's fixing to. Therefore, we'll lose count, and we won't know the day or the hour. But today, we can count it on a calendar. So you count backwards 1,390 days, you end up where, what? That's the peace agreement, around January 11th, where it's a forced covenant with Israel. It was forced to move the 450,000 Jews on the West Bank to this side. Well, if you get there before that peace agreement or that forced covenant, get you an apartment, because there's going to be a shortage of them. There's going to be a shortage of them. And
wow, Brother Joe, that's so intense. What you're saying is it's new for me, and it gives me something to really think about. And you really, and I believe we're there at these end times. I mean, we definitely agree on that. I believe Planet X is out there. I totally believe it is going to be used to bring about the 6th seal. Could it be wrong? Sure, but that's my persuasion based off the research and the data, as you like to say, that I've processed. And you're saying that there was going to be a certain point where physically, believers need to get going to Jerusalem. What a thought.
We are not ignorant. Yeah, we are not ignorant of his return if we're following his mikraz and his signs in heaven. They're going to be declared. I think the Bible's
clear that he doesn't want us to be in the dark, and he doesn't want us to he's not going to come up on us as a thief in the night, the believers, his believers, the ones that's watching, the one that knows what the Scriptures say.
Right. It's a custom to act like you don't know, but you really do. Mid of week, mid of night. 3.5 days after the Feast of Passover. It's going to be March 26, 2016. Revelation 12:1.
So you think 2016 is a date? I will tell you something, Brother Gill, and this is something I've never shared. I might have shared it once or twice. I'm almost certain I've never shared it on the radio ever. About 3 weeks ago, I had 2 dreams, okay, 2 dreams. I might have told you about these dreams in a private phone call. The first dream, I was with one of my oldest friends that I've ever had, as far as length of our friendship. And we were in my house, and we walked out of my front door, and it was dark. And whenever it's dark in a dream, it's kind of eerie for me. And I looked up at the moon, and to make a long story short, the moon was hit with a giant asteroid in my dream. And
wow.
I told my friend, I said, this is it. I could see the dust rising from the moon in my dream. And I said, I believe I said, that's the dust from the moon. I said, the moon was just struck. And in my dream, I got my dad on the phone. And I said, Dad, we don't even have enough time to prepare. I said, we don't even have enough time to prepare. We got to meet now. And I don't know where we were going, but we were definitely going somewhere because we knew things were going to get very chaotic. So I saw that. I saw that in my dream, and I almost heard the percussion of it, like a poof in my dream. It seems like I almost heard it, but I saw the dust rising off the moon in my dream. You could see it from Earth, and before it happened, though, and this is the part of the dream I don't quite really understand, before the asteroid hit the moon and a star were like dancing in the sky. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but they were dancing. That's how I explained it to my dad. I've told a couple people personally this dream. I don't think I've ever shared it publicly. I think I did at church, this dream here, the first dream. Now, the second dream, I'm not sure if I have. This was like on a Saturday night. The moon and the star started to dance, and the moon actually kind of looked like a star, then turned into the moon. They were rotating around each other when the asteroid hit the moon and the dust flew off. And then the moon was still shining at the end of my dream, but it was very, very dim. It was still shining, but it had lost so much of its light. Now, I knew that, I really felt that dream was probably spiritual, and I don't spiritualize every dream, but I saw it so clear in my dream, it so startled me. The very next night, I had a dream that I was back in the old place that my wife and I used to live, this trailer, and I was in our bedroom, and my brother-in-law was there, and I was laying out all this research from the old-time reformers. I remember specifically maybe like Jonathan Edwards or George Whitefield, some of the old preachers from the Great Awakening. And a long story short, in that dream, I was trying to tell my brother-in-law that all these things these guys were talking about was all happening in 2016. I actually had that dream a few weeks ago. And that's when you say 2016, I think about that dream when I was, because those men actually pointed to the years of 2012 to 2016, some of them, when you ran their numbers and their thoughts about the empires and the things that we have seen in the history of the world. So we are in the season. We are in the season. Brother Gil, we got about 5 minutes. Anything you just like to just close with real quick, because we still need 2 minutes to say the sinner's prayer.
Well, just to qualify that, remember that Nibiru disc I was telling you about Joseph. If you calculate it back to whenever they entered the land, that gives you 1485 BCE. That's exactly 70 jubilees to this coming jubilee coming in 2016. Exactly. Wow. 70. That fulfills part of Daniel again. We have more math than we've seen in a long time on the lineups.
I think so. And, I think so. Well, Brother Gil, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you, and maybe we can do it again if you wish.
Absolutely. Maybe.
The writing is here.
Do we know those lifts?
Yeah. Iset, Isis, Neter, Hur, Nebu, the Horus name. Nusir, Ra, An Khadijat, the eternal seed or gift of life, or the eternal life gift. Nusir Ra is supposedly the name or who they relate the whole place to, this temple of the sun. He had another temple and a pyramid over there also related to him. And we can see that the writings also are not so,
not so perfect.
Not so perfect, yeah. Especially that they draw it first and then carve it. It's not very special.
Yeah, it's not. There's other obelisks that they look like tool marks.
Yeah.
These ones.
These look like here they hardly scratched that stone with any symbols. You can hardly see the symbol.
You can hardly see it, yeah.
Yeah.
Same there again.
Here you can see some of the basins made from limestone, and that each one has 3 drills in it. Again, the style of quarrying, creating millstones.
These millstones were important.
Very important.
For the quarrying.
It was like every like little village would have a special spot where they do the grain and stuff. Then these stones were needed. It's like the core of the factory.
Wow, here we are.
These ones, yeah.
Wow, unusual again. We've got 3 holes.
Yeah. We examined this, me and Stephen Miller, once, and we thought like why would this have 3? Why not?
That's
Why not just
incredibly
one?
interesting. And then again, you have it repeated again. Same again, 3 again.
Yeah. So we thought that this could be actually like some used to receive in, and some used to leave out, and one was above or something like that. But
valves and mechanisms.
Not all be pouring in or all pouring
Same
out.
again over there. Nothing but 3.
Yeah. Even these ones are exactly the same size.
Same, different product line over here.
Yeah. Very interesting. You can see how the stone itself isolated from each other.
Weathered. It's been weathered for God knows how many centuries.
God knows.
Two curious features as well, Yusuf, at the back, and you've got 2 channels as well, unusual channels. Yeah, you've got 3 holes, but the 2 outside ones have a channel feeding them.
Yeah, it was probably connected to copper pipes.
An ancient hot tub, maybe? Ancient hot tub?
That's what the Romans used. They used these once in Alexandria, and they made them actually a bathtub.
Wow. They just recycled them.
It was, of course, similar to these basins. See, I still don't believe that the Carrara marble we find in Alexandria was brought by the Greeks or the Romans, because these people got so used to recycle the stones they found on the site. Plus, there are other evidence that supports my theory, because we know that these shapes that they took from basalt or Carrara marble, they made it as a stand for the statues. They usually put the statue on. So I examined one of them, and I saw that to house the statue on top of it, they used the poor style of hammering, while the piece itself is a clean cut, very similar to what we see in the Giza Plateau, even if the type of stone was different. So, but they all say like anything that's manufactured out of Carrara marble, that has to be Roman. I don't think so. The Romans dismantled and quarried the site of the labyrinth that used to be 3,000 chambers on that site. They quarried almost all of it, or there could be a layer that's still buried underground. But these people did not bother bringing the stone from the other side of the sea to this country, because if this what they do, they wouldn't have the culture of the sword and occupying other countries to take their goodies. If you're able to create and construct these beautiful artifacts, you wouldn't need to go and put war on other countries so you can take the goodies. If you can build and prosper, you will build and prosper and protect, not go put war on other countries. And we can see example for them in every site. Look, this part here also, this piece for example. Come on. This is part of the Roman use, when they used to also reuse these stones to make also create this drill bigger and make it like another type of the millstone.
Yep, smaller, long and narrow.
Different types. Yeah, this one was just another device to smash the stuff in it, like herbs and stuff, and spices. And the other one was the wheel.
Round and flat. Yeah.
Round and flat.
This one tall and narrow. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Let's go up.
Thank you for listening to the first hour of Late Night in the Midlands. To finish listening to this episode, go to lnmradionetwork.com and become a subscriber. Becoming a subscriber is easy. There is a link on every page to take you to the subscription page. The cost is low, and you would be supporting Late Night in the Midlands and all of our efforts to bring you the truth. Again, go to lnmradionetwork.com, click on the subscribe button, and you can finish listening to this episode as well as all of the other shows that are in our archives.